Hi students, this video today is regarding the human digestive system because this system actually forms the important part to be studied in nutrition in animals. The human digestive system is actually responsible for breaking down the complex food which Holozoic nutrition comprises of, and by the process of digestion it is broken down into simple forms so that the body can absorb and then assimilate it. Human digestive system comprises of an alimentary canal with many organs and glands located so as to assist the process of digestion. This alimentary canal is 8 to 10 meters long approximately, and before starting the human digestive system, we'll recall the 5 points of the steps of nutrition, which is ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation and egestion. Now all these 5 steps are also performed in the human digestive system, and one by one we'll study about them. The first organ is mouth, through which the ingestion or the food enters inside our body. And the second step of digestion also starts in the mouth. The food which is taken inside is broken down into small pieces with the help of teeth present inside the mouth. It is then mixed with saliva with the help of tongue, and it forms bolus. This bolus is then passed into another tube-like structure known as esophagus or food pipe, and this process is known as process of deglutition. Esophagus is approximately 20 to 25 centimeters long, and it is in this portion that the peristalsis begins. Now, what is peristalsis? It is the wave-like movement which helps the food particle, or to be very precise, the bolus, to propel forward. The esophagus is the first site where the peristalsis begin, and it continues till rectum. Then the third part, where this tube-like structure esophagus open, is considered to be the widest part, and this is known as stomach. The food here stays for 3 to 4 hours and is converted into a semi-digested form which is known as chyme. This chyme is then slowly released into the next part, which is small intestine. The small intestine is further divided into 3 parts. You can see the C-shaped loop, which is known as the first part of small intestine, duodenum, where the maximum digestion takes place, followed by the second part known as jejunum, and the concluding third part, ileum. This small intestine is approximately 6 meters long. Now the interesting question is that if this is 6 meter long out of 8 to 10 meters alimentary canal, then why it is called as small? It is called a small intestine because the lumen or the diameter of this is very small as compared to the another intestine, which is large intestine. So it is the lumen or the diameter which is small, and in large intestine it is the lumen or the diameter which is wider. That is why the term large intestine. The food then moves and gets digested finally in small intestine, and the next step of nutrition, that is the absorption, also begins here. You can see these red dotted structures. These are nothing but the finger-like projections which are present inside the small intestine so as to increase the surface area, and these finger-like structure is known as villi. Singular is vilus, plural is villi, and they increase the surface area for absorption. These villi on their heads further have finger-like projections known as microvilli, and this causes maximum area or provides the maximum area for absorption of the digested food. Then whatever remains undigested along with water, which is not absorbed in small intestine, moves into another broader lumen intestine known as large intestine, which is approximately 1.5 meters long. So the absorption of water and water soluble vitamins takes place here in the large intestine. Large intestine is further divided in subsequent parts like the ascending colon, the transverse colon, the descending colon, the sigmoid colon, and then finally opens into a sac-like structure known as rectum, where undigested waste particles, that means the particle which has not been broken down yet, like cellulose, we don't digest cellulose, so whatever is not digested or whatever is not broken down is stored temporarily in the rectum. And when this rectum gets completely filled, then by the act or the urge to pass these feces, which is known as defecation, the another opening anus assists the evacuation of these feces. So defecation is nothing but it is the act of getting rid of undigested waste or undigested food particles through the anus. Now we'll be studying about that how this process of digestion is actually assisted by a group of glands which are known as exocrine glands, which produces enzymes or also known as biocatalyst, and they help in breaking down the complex food into simple form so that it can be easily absorbed in the body. Our body is unable to absorb this complex food until and unless it is broken down into simple forms. Now the first is exocrine gland, which is present inside the mouth, where the first step of digestion begins, is this green colored glands known as salivary glands. We have three pairs of salivary glands in our mouth, which is like the parotid gland, sublingual and submaxillary glands. Three pairs means they are 6 in number. The function of these glands is to break down starch and sugars into maltose and isomaltose, which is a slight simple form. We'll not say that is the simplest form, but slightly simple form than this complex form. And this breakdown is assisted by an enzyme known as salivary amylase, secreted by the salivary glands in the form of saliva. Now when the food is simply partially digested in the mouth, where actually the first step only starts, and since the food does not stays here for a very long duration of time, so only some amount of starch and sugar is broken down into maltose and isomaltose. The food then propels down into the esophagus by the peristaltic movements and further moves to the broader chamber, which is stomach. Now in the stomach, in the walls of stomach, we have gastric glands located, and they have cells like oxyntic cells and the goblet cells, which actually releases the proenzymes and also releases some of the chemicals responsible for activation of these proenzymes. Now what are these proenzymes? Proenzymes are the inactive form of enzymes. These proenzymes need to be activated by certain chemicals, like the proenzyme which is secreted by gastric glands located on the wall of stomach is pepsinogen, which is the inactive form of pepsin. So this pepsinogen has first to be converted into pepsin, only then it will be able to break down the proteins into peptones and proteases. And this pepsinogen is activated by HCl, which is secreted by gastric gland, because these enzymes require acidic environment to act upon. Likewise, there is another protein known as casein, and the stomach secretes a proenzyme known as prorenin, which is also activated by HCl into renin, and this causes further breakdown of casein into peptones and proteases. But still, it is not broken down into the simplest form, which is amino acid. But the food stays here for 3 to 4 hours, and maximum digestion of proteins takes place in stomach. Moving ahead to the next organ, the stomach then is connected to the C-shaped structure, which is known as duodenum. Now this duodenum is the site where the maximum digestion will take place. Till now, we have studied that the digestion of glucose has carbohydrate have started here, proteins have started here, but fats are still not digested. So the digestion of fat will begin in the C-shaped structure known as duodenum. This duodenum is assisted by the secretions of two glands. One is liver and the second is pancreas. The red color gland which you can see is liver, and this green colored structure located just below the stomach is pancreas. The liver as well as pancreas release their secretions or their juices into duodenum, where the further digestion takes place. Now always remember, students, that liver is one such organ which do not release any enzyme. So if it does not release any enzyme, then what does it do? How this gland is significant in the category of exocrine glands. Now liver perform two important functions. Fat droplets cannot be digested easily because they are very big in size, so they need to be broken down into smaller form, and this process is known as process of emulsification, where the big fat droplets are broken down into small droplets, and this is assisted by the bile juice secreted by liver. Liver produces bile and stores it in a small gland-like structure located at the base of liver known as gallbladder. So gallbladder will concentrate that bile juice, and slowly when the food will come in the duodenum, this bile juice is released to break down the bigger fat droplets into smaller fat droplets, and their surface area increases and the enzymes can easily act upon that. The second function which it performs is it makes the environment alkaline. Now you have seen that in salivary glands, when the secretions are being poured by these glands, the secretions are alkaline, whereas when the food comes in stomach, the gastric glands secretion can only work in an acidic environment. But when this food comes in duodenum, it again requires the alkaline environment for the enzymes to act. Now who will provide this alkaline environment? This is provided by bicarbonate ions secreted in the bile juice. Now this bile juice is rich in these bicarbonate ions, which makes the environment alkaline once again, so that the enzymes secreted by pancreas can act. Both the secretions of the glands are emptied into duodenum. Pancreas is a heterocrine gland and is a very important gland because it is an exocrine gland also, since it is secreting the enzyme, and it is an endocrine gland also, which you have read in previous classes, like it releases a hormone known as insulin and glucagon. Okay, we'll be discussing that later, but today we'll be concentrating on its exocrine part. Pancreas produces a juice known as pancreatic juice, which have different enzymes which will further act on the partially digested food to break it down further, like the starch, because the digestion of starch has not been completed in mouth. So 50 to 60% of the digestion of starch will again start in pancreas, and now it will be acted upon by pancreatic amylase. Here it was salivary amylase because it was secreted by salivary glands, and this is pancreatic amylase secreted by pancreas, which will again break down the starch into maltose and isomaltose. Then the emulsified fat, which is actually produced with the help of bile juice secreted by liver, will be acted upon by an enzyme known as lipase and will be broken down into fatty acids and glycerol. But not all. Some forms are also broken down into triglycerides and diglycerides. Then the third enzyme will cause the digestion of proteins. Now proteins which has been broken down into peptones and proteases will further be broken down into peptides by another enzyme known as trypsin. So the difference is often asked, the difference between pepsin and trypsin. Pepsin breaks protein into peptones and proteases, works in an acidic environment, but trypsin works in an alkaline environment and breaks peptones into peptides. Moving ahead, now the food moves into the last part, or the second part of small intestine. The second part of small intestine, which is jejunum and ileum, the walls contain intestinal glands, and these intestinal glands produces the juice known as succus entericus. Entericus words actually is for the intestine, and this juice which is produced will finally cause or help or assist in the complete digestion of the food. If still some particle is left undigested, then it will be thrown out from the body in that form only. So to begin with, we'll first start with carbohydrates. Carbohydrates which has been partially broken down into maltose, isomaltose, or some form which is still left like starch, lactose, sucrose, will finally be broken down into glucose, and this form will be absorbed by the body. Maltose is broken down into glucose by maltase, isomaltose, then starch, amylase, lactose, lactase, sucrose, sucrase. Then comes the digestion of fat. Most of the digestion actually takes place here in the duodenum, but if still some amount of fat is left in the form of tri or dry glycerides, is broken down into fatty acids and glycerol by the enzyme known as lipase, or we also call it as intestinal lipase. And then these fatty acids will be easily absorbed by the body. Then coming to the next part of protein digestion, which is in the form of peptides, which was left here in duodenum, will now enter into the second part of the intestine, and these peptides will finally be broken down into amino acid with the help of enzyme known as epipsin, and these amino acids will then finally be absorbed by the body. Now moving ahead, we'll understand that now the simple forms like the glucose, amino acids and fatty acids will then finally be absorbed by the villi and will be passed on, and this will be the third step of nutrition, which is absorption. Then this absorbed food will then be transported to different parts of the body, either by blood vessels or by the lymphatic vessels, and will then be utilized by those different organs for either growth, repair, or the reproduction of the cells. This will conclude the fourth step, which is assimilation. Then moving on to the last step, whatever food is not being digested here will now move to large intestine, and this undigested food will become concentrated here more and more because the water absorption has still not taken place. So maximum absorption of water will take place here, and this concentrated food will then come into the rectum and stored for some duration of time. And when the rectum is full, we have an urge of defecation, and it will be thrown out from the anus, forming the last step, which is egestion. I hope you all would have understood the human digestive system in detail. If you have any queries, you can still message me. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and keep on liking my videos, because this will keep on motivating me to put more videos for you. Thank you.